Welcome to Stories Podcast. Today we are going to read Cinderella from Disney World. So, get your books or your PDFs and let's begin. There once was a young girl named Cinderella. She lived with her father, stepmother, and stepsisters, Anastasia and Rosella. Sadly, Cinderella's stepmother and stepsisters were not very kind, and when her father died, they began to treat Cinderella like a servant. Many years passed, but despite the way she was treated, Cinderella grew into a beautiful, kind, and cheerful young lady. She made friends with the birds and the house mice, talking and singing with them to pass the time. One day, a palace footman arrived with an invitation. The king was throwing a ball that night in honor of his son, the prince. By royal command, every eligible maiden is to attend, the stepmother read aloud. Why? That means I can go too, Cinderella exclaimed. The stepmother half-heartedly agreed, but only if Cinderella finished her chores in time. At first, Cinderella was sure she could get everything done, but her stepmother and stepsisters gave Cinderella many extra tasks. They kept her so busy that she didn't have time to prepare her outfit for the ball. Cinderella was very disappointed. What Cinderella didn't know was that her animal friends, Jack, Gus, and the others, had spent the entire day turning a simple dress into a pretty ball gown for their friend. For the final touches, they added a sash and a necklace that Cinderella's stepsisters had tossed aside. Surprise, surprise, surprise! They sang as they presented the gown to Cinderella. Oh, thank you so much, she cried. Then she put on the gown and ran downstairs. The moment the stepsisters saw Cinderella's outfit, they grew absolutely furious. Why, you little thief! Shouted Anastasia. Those are my beads. And that's my sash! Shrieked Rosella. The cruel girls began yanking and tugging on Cinderella's dress until the lovely gown was in tatters. With nothing to wear to the ball, poor Cinderella had to stay behind. Heartbroken, Cinderella ran to the garden and began to cry. As she wept, the air around her began to sparkle and glow, and right before her eyes, a kindly woman appeared. Dry those tears, said the woman. You can't go to the ball looking like that. And then she held up a magic wand. Cinderella's eyes grew large. Then you must be your fairy godmother, the woman finished. Bebbidi Bobbidi-Boo, she said, and with a wave of her wand, a pumpkin turned into an elegant carriage. Cinderella's animal friends became stately horses, a coachman, and a footman. Finally, her dress was transformed into a beautiful ball gown, and her shoes became dainty glass slippers. Oh, it's a beautiful dress, Cinderella exclaimed. The fairy godmother urged Cinderella to hurry off to the ball. "But you must leave by midnight," she warned, "for after that the spell will be broken." At the palace, the ball was just beginning. The prince stood dutifully greeting each of the maidens the king had invited. Just then the prince spotted a beautiful girl standing alone on the balcony. It was Cinderella. He rushed over to her and bowed, enchanted by the lovely stranger. Cinderella and the prince spent the rest of the evening together, walking in the palace garden, dancing and gazing into each other's eyes, and before they knew it, they had fallen in love. Cinderella was so swept away by the handsome prince that she lost track of the time. She was shocked to hear the clock striking midnight. "Oh no, I must leave you," Cinderella gasped, pulling away from the prince and running out of the palace. She flew down the grand staircase, but in her haste she left behind one of her glass slippers. Cinderella leapt into her enchanted carriage and drove away just in time. At the final stroke of midnight, the fairy godmother's spell ended, and Cinderella, the carriage, and her animal friends were returned to their original forms. The prince found Cinderella's slipper, but, not knowing her name, he had no way to find her. So, the next morning, the king ordered the Grand Duke to visit each house in the kingdom and to try the glass slipper on every maiden. The girl whose foot fit the tiny slipper would become the prince's bride. Upon hearing this news, the stepmother locked Cinderella in her bedroom. Then the stepmother slipped the key into her pocket and went downstairs to meet the Grand Duke. Once again, Cinderella's mice friends came to her rescue. They were able to steal the key from the stepmother, push and pull the key up the stairs to Cinderella's room, and finally slip it under her door. Just then, Cinderella appeared. "Wait!" she called as she ran down the staircase. The royal footman carried the slipper towards Cinderella, but before he reached her, the stepmother tripped him. The glass slipper went flying and broke into a million pieces. "Oh no!" the Grand Duke wailed. "This is terrible." "But you see," Cinderella said softly, "I have the other one." With that, she pulled the matching slipper from her apron and slid it onto her dainty foot. It fit perfectly. The Grand Duke was delighted. At last he had found the Princess Mystery Maiden and true love. But no one could be happier than Cinderella, whose dreams had all come true. The Grand Duke promptly escorted her to the palace, where she and the prince were reunited. They were soon married in a magnificent palace ceremony, and Cinderella and her prince lived happily ever after. Magic is over for today, I'm afraid. I hope you enjoyed your time. See you all next week.